For today's painting inspiration, I headed to the grounds of the lovely Temple Newsam in pretty misty conditions, which were unexpected because I did not check the forecast. On any other day, I might have taken one look outside and thought, you know what, today looks like a painting day, and I probably would have stayed inside. So normally I go out whatever the weather. I am not necessarily a fair weather person and I like to go for a walk every day regardless. But when it comes to mist and fog, I just didn't have very high expectations. I was thinking I'd probably only be able to see a couple of feet ahead of me, and that's not really ideal when you are looking for wildlife or for something panoramic to paint. But despite my initial reservations, this was actually a really lovely trip and the fog was very atmospheric and I am glad I came. I've got to say, I did not go to this location with the highest of expectations, especially because it was so foggy in the morning. I just didn't think I was going to see that much. But also, it's a stately home, and I was kind of thinking there would be more manicured grounds and not very much wildlife, and I definitely wasn't expecting to enjoy my time as much as I did here. Okay, so it is not the kind of place that I would go with the expectation of seeing something really rare that you might otherwise see at a designated nature reserve. It definitely has a different feel to being at a nature reserve. There's lots of other things going on. So there were some outdoor activities on the site in the woodland. There is a farm here. There's obviously the big stately home and its grounds. There's a lot of manicured lawns going on and really beautiful places for people to go and take a walk. And perhaps as a result of all these other attractions, it was definitely busier than some of the nature reserves I've visited so far as part of this series. So as I mentioned, I definitely didn't go to this place with the expectation of seeing something really rare or necessarily having similar wildlife experiences as I would have had at a designated nature reserve or a site that was just a little bit wilder. But the encounters that I did have with wildlife here were pretty special anyway. Visiting this place actually reminded me of being little, of being a child again. I was really lucky in that when I was younger I got to go to lots of parks, not too dissimilar to this, and this just brought back so many memories. So the wildlife might not be the rarest I have ever seen, but the things that I did see were just so lovely, and I don't know, there was just something comforting and nostalgic about it. It brought back so many memories of being younger and going to feed the ducks with my grandparents, of trying to get as close as possible to grey squirrels when we were out, of going out on a weekend, whatever the weather, as long as it wasn't too extreme, just being really wrapped up and enjoying nature and the outdoors and experiencing autumn and all of that. It just brought back so many memories being here, and it was really lovely. And I think having those experiences when I was little has really shaped my enthusiasm for nature in the present. So it was really important to me to go back to a place like this and reconnect with all of the things that I loved so much about it when I was small. It's probably not something that you recognize or think very much about at the time, but being able to visit places like this and watching nature programs with my dad and making these connections to wildlife at such a young age really influenced the kind of person that I have eventually become. Because of this early love for wildlife, it impacted what I decided to do at college, what degree I chose to do, the kind of jobs that I've worked in after getting that degree. It's affected what I do in my spare time, and it has certainly influenced what I am interested in as an artist. And speaking of art, now I'm done reminiscing, I think it's probably time to look for some painting inspiration. And as you've hopefully discovered from the video so far, I had a lot to choose from this week. It was definitely difficult just settling on one thing, and ultimately I decided to go for a scene which I felt kind of encompassed a lot of the lovely parts of this trip. There was a lovely swan that was on its own, and every time I went past it, it kind of had its head tucked away. But on my way back to the car, it started to be a little bit more active, and I thought, I'll hang around here for a little while. Because not only was there that beautiful swan, but there were also some ducks nearby, there were trees in the background, you could just see the mist in the distance, you could see some of the autumn colours. I felt like there was enough going on here, and it also had the water and the reflections, and all of those things were really good representations of the things that I really liked about this visit. So once I'd recorded everything and I'd taken enough photos, I headed back to do my painting. I am using a 6x8" piece of oil painting paper, which I have cut to size because I did not have the right size. And I am going in as usual, just with some burnt sienna to outline the scene. I'm then going to go over with some thinned down oil paint just to block in where everything's going to be very roughly. And then I'll go over it again with slightly more detail. I really enjoyed my time at Temple Newsam, and I kind of wanted the painting to reflect that, so I spent a little bit more time on it than I usually would do. Now, in general, I definitely prefer wilder areas. I love really untamed nature and feeling like you're truly in the wilderness and you're surrounded by animals and plants and you are far from civilization, and this definitely wasn't that. But I still found enjoyment from visiting this site. After all, it's places like this where I had those early experiences with wildlife that really encouraged me to care so much about it today. And so it was nice revisiting that and seeing all of those things that connected me with nature when I was younger. One of the things that I am really enjoying about this series is how much it's helping me to connect to nature in a way that I don't think I've done for a long time. I have always been passionate and enthusiastic about wildlife, which is obviously what I was talking about earlier in this video about becoming interested in nature when I was little, and that has definitely continued through my life. I try to spend as much time as I can outdoors. I try to appreciate the wildlife around me. I volunteer for a conservation organisation. I do surveys. I spend a lot of time outside with my dog, and so I've always assumed that I was really making the most of the wildlife nearby and that I was taking everything in and that I was appreciative of all of the loveliness around me. But it wasn't until I started doing these videos that I realised that I haven't actually been appreciating it as much as I thought that I had. Usually when I'm out, there is normally a specific reason that I'm going on a walk or I'm spending time in nature, and that could be I'm taking my dog for a walk, so the purpose is to get from A to B. It could be that I'm out with friends, so maybe we're just catching up and there's other things going on and it's not necessarily all about nature. And when I'm volunteering, even though that can be at a nature reserve, usually I'm focused on the task at hand and I'm not necessarily taking in everything that's going on around me. And I know that I've mentioned this before, but even when I'm out with the purpose of just having a nice walk in nature, I'm not always completely appreciative of everything that's going on around me, and that is because life can be pretty busy and hectic and you can have a million other things going on in your mind that kind of prevent you from really enjoying the moment and being a bit more mindful. It could be that I'm just making a mental to-do list, or I'm thinking about something that I've got going on later on that day or later in the week. It might be that I'm just worrying about something or thinking about something that I have to get done that is just preventing me from being completely present in the moment and really taking everything in. What I absolutely love about these videos, which was definitely an unintended side effect, is that I actually, for the first time in ages, am completely present with wildlife, and I am making the most of every single moment in a way that I haven't done in a really long time. Even though I'm going with the intention of filming, because the intention is to film wildlife and to find beautiful things that I could potentially paint, my attention is on really great things, and all I'm doing is listening to birds call and trying to pinpoint where they might be, or finding a really beautiful, peaceful spot where I can set up for a little while and just see what happens. Looking for really nice panoramic views, breathing in the fresh air, just enjoying the sights and sounds of nature, and it has been pretty lovely, I've got to say. For example, usually if I was out for a walk and I saw a grey squirrel, I might think, oh, that's pretty cute, and I would acknowledge it, and then I would carry on with my walk, and I would probably forget about that interaction. But here, when I saw grey squirrels, I would spend a little bit of time just getting as close as I could without scaring them off so that I could film them for this video. And I just watch what they were doing for a little while and spend a bit of time in their world for a moment, rather than just catching a quick glimpse and moving on. It's nice just to slow down sometimes and just take it all in. I came across this lovely little squirrel as I was walking up towards the house, and I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I spent a little bit of time watching. I think he was figuring out whether or not I was a threat in the beginning, but I liked that eventually it just got about its business as if I wasn't there, and carried on foraging and doing all of the busy things that squirrels do this time of year. I also took the time to notice birds a little bit more, which is something that I like to do anyway. I love the bird life in the UK and some of the rarer species that we get, as well as our familiar favourites. On this trip, I did not bring my binoculars because, as I said in the beginning, I did not have high expectations from this location in terms of wildlife, but there was actually quite a lot there. I think I came across a flock of redwing, which are winter visitors, and I haven't seen them properly this year yet, but I think I saw them passing overhead. There were a couple of woodpeckers that I saw flying overhead, but they were a little bit too fast for me to try and film them on this phone. There was also what could possibly have been a goldcrest in one of the hedges nearby. It was really well hidden, but it was really tiny, and I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But I spent a little bit of time trying to figure it out, and it just got me thinking that usually if I was out for a walk, I would probably just pass that by. If I saw a bird that I couldn't identify and it was just a shadow in the middle of the bushes, I probably wouldn't pay that much attention to it. But because I was here and this was the task, I just stood there for a little while and tried to figure out what it was, and just spent a little bit of time being still and just taking in the surroundings and watching it flip from branch to branch. Not helpful in terms of identifying the bird because I still can't tell you what it was, but I did appreciate having that time just to stand still for a moment and just spend some time near it. One of my favourite bird encounters from this trip was actually with a common species which we get quite a lot. There was a flock of long-tailed tits, and I heard them calling overhead, and normally, I guess if I was out and I heard their call, I'd probably just think, oh, you know, that's a flock of long-tailed tits, and I'd think, how nice, and I would carry on walking, and I wouldn't necessarily even look for them because I'd know what they were. But here, I was very much committed to filming as much wildlife as I could and having those experiences. So when I saw them land in a nearby oak tree, I decided just to stand still a little bit, look up in the branches and wait. There was no one else on the footpath. It was really peaceful and I had the time, so why not? And I just spent a little while waiting and watching, and they came so close and it was absolutely worth it. Every time I do one of these videos, it just acts as a really great reminder of why it's so important just to slow down every now and then and take in your surroundings. After all, of all the things that I saw today, none of them were particularly unique or rare. The things that I had the best encounters with were things that I see all the time. The flock of long-tailed tits were absolutely lovely, and one of my favorite experiences was just watching that grey squirrel. Even the scene that inspired today's painting was not really that unusual, and it's something that you could potentially see in a variety of parks across the country. It's not like I'm painting a really rare bird or a really unique setting, but it meant something to me in the moment, and I think it was really beautiful. With this painting, I tried to capture a little bit of the feeling of the day. So there's the lovely mist in the background, which actually looks a little bit purple and blue in some areas, just adding that atmosphere. You've got the leaves, which are just starting to turn and become a little bit more autumnal. The ducks on the pond that reminded me of being little, and this beautiful swan, which had really gorgeous highlights and just looked absolutely perfect in this setting. I spent a lot more time on this painting than I initially intended, and I still don't think I've completely done it justice. I would like to do a larger scene from my day's visit, which might happen in the future depending on how other projects go, but I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I hope you have enjoyed watching along. I hope you like the painting and the visit to this lovely location. Please leave a comment below letting me know what you think. Your interaction is very much appreciated in these videos. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and feel free to subscribe for some more art and wildlife related content, and I'll see you next time.